I want to start with a scenario that I think everyone, literally everyone, has experienced. You are stuck in traffic. Dead stop.
Ugh, the worst.
It's 90 degrees. Your AC is just sort of pushing warm air around. You're late for something important, and you are just miserable.
I'm getting angry just thinking about it.
And then you look in the rearview mirror, and you see some guy in, like, a luxury sedan just weave onto the shoulder.
Oh, no.
He bypasses the entire jam and then just speeds off into the distance.
The universal experience of rage.
Oh, it's primal.
Yeah.
It really is. But deeper than the rage, if you're honest with yourself, there's a specific fantasy that pops into your head. You don't just want a cop to catch him. You want to be able to reach out, pick up his car, crush it into a little metal cube, and just toss it into the sun. You want the power to enforce the rules yourself.
You want to be a superhero.
Oh,
Well, that is exactly the razor's edge we are walking today. We have a really fascinating stack of research here. Articles, some psychological profiles, even a few philosophy papers.
Right.
And they all basically argue that our obsession with superheroes isn't really about the costumes or the lasers or, the flying.
Okay.
It's about a very specific, and I would say very dangerous philosophical question. What do we do with people who are stronger than the system?
And looking at these notes, this is not just us doing movie reviews today. This gets dark, and it gets dark fast.
Sauce.
We're going to be talking about the psychology of vigilantes, the sociology of what the source calls good faith, and somehow why Superman explains our existential terror of artificial intelligence.
It creates a really surprising through line. I was kind of blown away by it, actually, because whether it's an alien in a cape or an algorithm that can, write a sonnet,
Right.
we're talking about asymmetry. When one entity has way, way more power than everyone else, the old rules of morality just break down.
So the mission for this deep dive, then, is to figure out what actually makes a hero. Is it just being strong and nice? Because that feels like the superficial answer.
Definitely not. The sources argue that a superhero is defined by a concept called voluntary obligation.
Okay, let's unpack that right off the bat. Voluntary obligation. Sounds a little bit like legal jargon.
It does.
Yeah.
But it's actually psychological. Think about the bystander effect. The phenomenon where if there's a crowd and something bad happens, nobody calls 911 because everyone assumes someone else will.
Right. Not my problem. Somebody else has got it covered.
Exactly. Voluntary obligation is the precise opposite of that. It's the idea that a superhero is someone who has no legal duty to care. There's no boss telling them to act, no law requiring them to step in, but they choose to accept the burden anyway. It is the choice to care when you absolutely don't have to.
Which sounds incredibly noble on, like, a Hallmark card.
Right.
But as we're going to find out, acting without permission is actually, it's a nightmare for a functioning society.
It creates a massive paradox, and that's really what we're going to explore.
So let's get into the anatomy of it. The first section of the research breaks down the archetypes, but it challenges the standard definitions. It says we usually look at superheroes and we see power fantasies.
Right, the ability to fly, super strength, all the stuff we wish we could do.
But the sources argue we should be looking at them as moral case studies. And I think we have to start with the big one, the billionaire, Batman.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Now, the cynical take on Batman, and look, I have said this myself at parties to sound smart,
We all have.
is that he's just a rich guy working out his childhood trauma by punching poor people in alleys.
It's a valid critique if you only look at the violence, for sure.
Yeah.
But if you look at the structure of the character, the source argues his superpower isn't the fighting. It isn't the martial arts. It's access.
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 Yeah.
Think about Bruce Wayne's position in society. He has an elite education, he's at peak physical health, and he's at effectively infinite capital.
Yeah.
He is the walking definition of privilege.
He can get into any room, talk to any person.
He has access to every room, every resource, every lever of power.
Okay, so he could have spent his entire life on a yacht in the Mediterranean dating supermodels.
What?
He could have just been a philanthropist who cuts checks and drinks champagne at galas.
And nobody would have blamed him for it. That's the absolute key.
Yeah.
Society expects the ultra-rich to be indulgent. We expect them to be disconnected. Bruce Wayne's heroism, according to this framework, is that he takes that privilege and voluntarily converts it into responsibility.
So the super part isn't the gadgets, it's the discipline, the choice.
It's the opportunity cost. It's what he gives up. The source calls it transforming access into obligation. He operates on this absolutely crushing belief that because he can change the outcome, he must.
Wow.
If he stays on that yacht, he believes he is morally complicit in every single crime he didn't stop.
That is a heavy psychological burden. That's basically, it's access equals guilt.
It is, and that's what drives the character. That's why he's so obsessive. He embodies this idea that failing to use your means, whatever they are, to stop suffering is moral failure.
Okay, so that's the human side, the extreme end of human potential. But let's contrast that with Superman. You know, the total opposite end of the spectrum. You have an alien god.
A Boy Scout.
Right. And people often complain that Superman is boring because he's too strong.
The classic critique, yeah.
Oh, he can move planets, nothing can hurt him, where's the tension? But the source makes a really, I think, brilliant point here. Superman isn't interesting because he's strong. He's interesting because he is gentle.
I love this distinction because you have to think about the God problem. Superman could, if he wanted to, rule Earth by lunchtime.
Literally, no question.
He could enforce world peace. He could throw every dictator into the sun. He could dismantle every nuclear weapon in an afternoon. He has the raw power to be the ultimate tyrant, a benevolent one in his own mind, but a tyrant nonetheless.
And there are whole comic runs about that, right? The Injustice timeline where he just snaps and takes over the world.
Exactly. And those are fascinating thought experiments. But the main Superman, the one that endures, he doesn't do that. His fundamental moral choice is converting power into restraint. He wakes up every single day and actively, consciously limits himself to human speeds, human conversations, human laws.
So while Batman is trying to do more with his money and his access, Superman is constantly trying to do less than he is capable of.
Precisely. The source material uses this great analogy. He is living in a world made of cardboard, constantly terrified he's going to break something or someone by accident.
Right.
His heroism is humility. It's choosing conversation when you could choose coercion. It's waiting for the authorities to arrive when you could just solve the whole problem yourself in 5 seconds.
That's actually a really profound definition of strength. Strength isn't just capacity, it's control.
Right. If you can crush a diamond in your hand, then learning how to hold an egg without breaking it is the real skill. That's Superman.
Let's hit a few others quickly because the source groups them in some really interesting ways. Spider-Man. I feel like he is the archetype most of us actually relate to.
He's the archetype of moral awakening.
Yeah, that feels right. Because he's not a billionaire and he's not an alien. He's a kid from Queens.
And Peter Parker starts out selfish. This is so important to his character. He gets these incredible powers, and his first move isn't to save the city.
No.
It's to try and make money.
Right. He enters wrestling matches. He wants to buy a car to impress a girl.
Standard teenage priorities.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But then the tragedy happens. His Uncle Ben dies because Peter couldn't be bothered to stop a thief he ran into minutes earlier.
With great power comes great responsibility.
And the lesson there isn't fighting is cool. The lesson is inaction has a body count.
That is dark. Inaction has a body count.
It's the terrifying realization of adulthood, isn't it? When you're a kid, you're an observer. You watch the news, you watch your parents handle things. But at some point, you grow up and you realize that your silence, your spending habits, your vote, it all has consequences. Spider-Man represents that panic. The panic of realizing you are now responsible for the world around you, even though you don't feel remotely ready for it.
So it's a journey. Potential leads to guilt, leads to growth.
Exactly. It's the coming-of-age story for morality.
What about someone like Daredevil? The source notes emphasize moral tension with him, which feels spot on.
Daredevil is fascinating because he is a lawyer. He believes in the law. He dedicates his entire day job to the system.
But he puts on a mask at night because he knows the system fails. He lives that failure every day in the courtroom.
He's a walking contradiction. And he's deeply religious. The Catholic guilt is a huge part of his character. He doesn't enjoy the violence the way some other characters seem to.
No, he wrestles with it.
He wrestles with it constantly. His heroism is refusing to look away from suffering, even when it costs him spiritually. He is super hearing, so he can't ignore the screams. His heroism is his conviction, born from his inability to just shut it out.
Okay, and then we have a more modern example, Miss Marvel. The source labels her community care.
Yeah, and this is a really important modern shift in the genre. Batman saves Gotham, this big abstract city. Superman saves the world. Ms. Marvel saves Jersey City. She saves her neighborhood.
It's a much smaller scale.
But it's more intimate. Her heroism is about protecting the specific people right in front of her. It's not about grand philosophical battles against cosmic threats. It's about making sure your neighbors are okay. that the local bodega isn't getting shaken down.
Last one in the section of archetypes, and the source calls him a borderline case, but philosophically vital. Luke Skywalker.
This is one of my favorite insights in the research because you don't always think of him in the same category.
Right, he's more sci-fi fantasy.
But think about the climax of Return of the Jedi. Luke has defeated Vader. He's beaten him, cut off his hand. He has him on the ground. The Emperor is cackling, telling him, strike him down, fulfill your destiny.
Yeah.
How does Luke win? What is his heroic act?
Well, he stops. He looks at his own robotic hand, then at Vader's, and he just throws his lightsaber away.
He refuses to fight.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
His heroism is the refusal of the cycle. He realizes that to kill Vader in that moment of rage is to become Vader, is to repeat the same sin. So he chooses mercy over victory. He chooses to lose the physical fight to win the moral one.
Which is the ultimate good faith move, to borrow a term we'll get to later.
It is. And it connects all these different heroes, right? They all, in their own way, operate on a good versus evil compass. They all believe deep down that they are on the right side of things.
But, and here it is, the big but of this entire deep dive, the part where we kind of ruin everyone's childhood. That clarity, that certainty is exactly where things get dangerous.
This is the fault line.
Because in comic books, we have what the source calls moral legibility.
Right.
We know who the villain is. He's wearing green and purple. He's laughing maniacally. And he has a literal bomb with a big red countdown timer on it.
It's unambiguous. And that clarity is emotionally useful for us as an audience. It lets us practice moral courage without any of the messiness and confusion of real life.
We know who to cheer for.
We know who to cheer for. But the source argues that this trains a habit of moral certainty that is incredibly toxic when you try to apply it to the real world.
Because in the real world, the quote-unquote villain doesn't think they're the villain.
Never. No one wakes up, looks in the mirror, and says, time to go be the bad guy today. They think they're the hero of their own story.
And this brings us right to what the research calls the vigilante trap. Let's go back to Batman. His entire premise is, the system is corrupt, the police are failing, so I must act outside the law.
Which, to be fair to the fictional Gotham City, is usually true in the stories. The system really is that broken.
Sure, but let's apply that logic to reality. The source asks a really uncomfortable question. If Batman acts outside the law, who checks his math?
Right. If Batman tackles a guy in an alley because he thinks a drug deal is going down, but it's actually just, I don't know, two guys trading baseball cards, who corrects him?
There is no appeals court for a battering to the face.
Exactly. There is no oversight. He's the judge, the jury, and, well, maybe not the executioner in his case, but he's definitely the enforcer.
And the source argues that the more effective he is, the more dangerous he becomes, paradoxically.
Because success breeds arrogance. It reinforces his certainty. The psychological seed of tyranny isn't, I want to hurt people. It is, I am the only one who knows what needs to be done. It's that subtle shift when heroism moves from, I act to help, to, I act because I am right.
That distinction is subtle, but it's massive. I act because I am right means my judgment is supreme. No one else's matters.
And that leads us directly to the Superman God problem. The danger with Superman isn't that he might accidentally punch a building too hard. It's his decisiveness.
Okay, explain that. What do you mean by decisiveness?
Imagine a godlike being, like Superman, decides that, say, fossil fuels are an existential threat and are now illegal starting tomorrow. He flies around the world and just melts every oil rig.
Okay.
In his mind, he is saving the planet. He is being good. He's a hero. But he has just bypassed the consent, the debate, and the economic reality of 7 billion people.
He becomes a villain structurally, even if he believes he is a hero emotionally.
That is the key phrase from the research.
Right.
Structural villainy. Authoritarian regimes don't think of themselves as evil. They think of themselves as necessary.
I'm the only one who can fix this. It's the same logic?
That's the exact same logic. There is no time for debate. The crisis is too big for democracy. Dissent is a luxury we can't afford.
The source breaks down the definition of a villain in a way I found really, really compelling. It's not about twirling mustaches. It's that villains are people who prioritize being right over being accountable.
Yeah.
I actually want to read the list the source provides. How to tell if a hero is becoming a villain. It's a checklist. Number 1, they refuse correction. Number 2, they moralize disagreement. If you disagree, you're not just wrong, you're evil.
That's a huge one.
Number 3, they conflate opposition with a threat. And number 4, they prioritize the mission over consent.
That second one, moralizing disagreement. is just.
Yeah.
It's everywhere today. It means if you disagree with my methods, you must secretly support the bad thing I'm trying to stop.
We see that in politics every single day.
We do. And the fourth one, prioritizing the mission over consent. That is the Thanos logic.
Yeah.
A small price to pay for salvation. I'm going to save the universe, and I don't care if you want to be saved or not.
So the deeper critique here, the real danger of these stories, if we aren't careful, is that they can teach us that if you are sure enough, power justifies itself.
Yes. And that is a toxic, toxic lesson for the real world, where things are never that clear.
Speaking of the real world, let's try to ground this, because obviously we don't have Kryptonians flying around, but we do have people who fit that voluntary obligation definition we started with.
We absolutely do. If we strip away the costumes and the capes, we are looking for people who act without being told, who accept a personal cost, and who aim for the collective good.
And the source lists some examples, and what I love about them is that they aren't, celebrity philanthropists with their names on buildings.
No, not at all. The cleanest analog they offer is a volunteer firefighter.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Think about the social contract there. They run toward problems when everyone else is running away. It's purely voluntary risk. They're literally putting their bodies on the line for strangers, usually for zero pay and very little glory.
And then there's what the source calls quiet heroism. It uses the example of poll workers.
I love this example because it's so uncinematic. There's no slow motion walking away from an explosion.
Right.
It's just them sitting at a folding table, checking names on a list for 12 hours. But they are protecting the absolute fundamental infrastructure of civilization.
And in recent years, they're doing it while receiving hostility and even threats.
Exactly. They are receiving threats instead of praise, but they show up anyway. That is heroism. It's standing in the gap to ensure the system, flawed as it is, continues to work.
The source also mentions a kind of intellectual heroism, people who are filling gaps in knowledge, mutual aid networks, open source coders, unpaid educators.
Yeah, the people writing Wikipedia articles at 2 in the morning. We joke about it, but imagine the sheer scale of that gift to humanity, using your power, your knowledge, to reduce global ignorance for absolutely no financial gain. That is, access into responsibility. It's the Batman principle.
But, and this is the crucial part, just like the fictional heroes, there is a dark side to this real-world altruism. The source calls it, fittingly, the dark side of altruism.
It's blurry. It's a very blurry line. Because even real-world helpers can fall into that same trap of moral self-righteousness.
The savior complex.
Right. It's believing because I am helping, I must be right. It's when an activist or a volunteer starts treating any questioning of their methods not as a valid critique, but as a moral attack on their character.
Or what about performative altruism? I mean, we see this online constantly.
Oh, absolutely. Social media is an incubator for it. It's prioritizing visibility over effectiveness, outrage over accuracy. It's when moral action becomes a part of your personal brand.
So you aren't actually trying to solve the problem, you're trying to be seen solving the problem.
Precisely. And then there's unaccountable power. This is the Batman without Alfred problem in real life. Alfred is Batman's conscience, his check.
Right.
In the real world, this is the rogue philanthropist or the rogue activist who refuses to listen to the community they're supposedly helping. They act independently, and they resist all correction.
So even if you have good intent, without accountability, you are just imposing your will on people.
You become a colonizer with a checkbook. You might think you're a hero, but to them, you're just another tyrant.
This brings us to a really complex, but I think incredibly useful framework the source provides. They call it the matrix of good faith.
This is a crucial tool for navigating modern conflict, I think. It's been rattling around in my head since I first read it.
Because fiction teaches us this very simple binary. Rebels are good, the system is bad.
Right. Star Wars logic. The Empire is evil, the Rebel Alliance is good. The end.
But reality is so much messier. You can have a corrupt rebel. You can have a noble bureaucrat who is trying to make things better from the inside. So the source splits it into 4 quadrants based on behavior, not on your chosen team jersey.
Exactly.
Let's walk through the 4 positions. Position 1, the good faith rebel.
This is the classic whistleblower, the true reformer. They expose corruption, but, and this is the absolute key, they accept limits. They want to fix the house, not just burn it to the ground. They actually care about the outcome for other people.
Versus position 2, the bad faith rebel.
This is the agent of chaos. They wrap themselves in the aesthetics of revolution, but really they just enjoy the destruction. They ignore the collateral harm they cause. It's chaos for chaos's sake.
They don't have a plan for what comes after the fire.
No plan at all. And then you have the loyalists. Position 3, the good faith loyalist.
This is an interesting one.
It is, because we're conditioned to see them as the bad guys. But this is a stewardship role. This is the person who wants to maintain stability, seek reform from within, and protect vulnerable people using the existing system. They aren't blind to the faults, but they believe the structure is necessary to keep people fed and safe.
The person who keeps the lights on.
Exactly. And finally, the most dangerous one. The bad faith loyalist.
The enabler.
The enabler. They use the rules and the bureaucracy to suppress dissent and protect their own power. They enable abuse. They're the ones who say, I was just following orders.
This is such a helpful framework because it completely removes the team jersey aspect. You aren't good just because you're out there protesting, and you aren't bad just because you work for a big institution.
Exactly. The source says the true indicator of good faith isn't your position on the matrix. It's your behavior under challenge.
How do you react when someone tells you you're wrong?
That's the whole game right there.
Yeah.
Do you revise your beliefs? Do you allow criticism? Or do you treat all disagreement as a threat? The takeaway quote here is beautiful. Morality lives in humility, methods, and the willingness to be wrong.
Wow. And that leads us perfectly to one of the most famous quotes in all of superhero history.
Yeah.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
Harvey Dent. Two-Face. A perfect example.
But the source reinterprets this. It says it's not about time. It's not about just getting old or jaded. It's about failing to evolve.
The new version they propose is you either keep reflecting or your certainty will outlive your wisdom.
That hits hard. Your certainty will outlive your wisdom.
It's the idea that wisdom is a power that actually increases in cost the more you use it.
Yeah.
Every act of hero work, every decision you make has a blast radius. The more influence you have, the more dangerous your mistakes are.
So the classic villain origin story is essentially just clinging to the inertia of a mission when the context around you has completely changed.
Exactly. What was once courage becomes rigidity. What was once conviction becomes dogma. Think about Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
He is terrifying precisely because he was once so right. He was a believer in justice, a true hero.
The White Knight of Gotham.
But when he broke, when he suffered that loss, he didn't abandon certainty. He mechanized it.
The coin.
The coin. He replaced wisdom with randomness. He decided, I can't figure out what's right anymore, so I will let pure chance decide for me. That is the death of heroism.
Yeah.
Heroism requires the agony of choice. The moment you stop wrestling with the gray areas, you are on the path to villainy.
So by that logic, real heroism is often invisible.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not the big punch. It looks like rethinking a long-held stance. It looks like stopping a project because you realized it might do more harm than good. It looks like apologizing. Or, and this must be the hardest one, choosing not to act.
Choosing not to act is the hardest one for a hero, for someone who is defined by action. But sometimes, restraint is the only moral choice left on the table.
Now, I want to pivot to the final major section, which I think is the most intellectually out there, but maybe the most relevant part of this deep dive. The source brings up The Incredibles. You know, the Pixar movie where superheroes are made illegal.
One of the smartest superhero movies ever made. Genuinely.
The narrative there is that society exiled them. They forced them into hiding. And the source argues this wasn't because the heroes were evil, but because of what it calls the Incredibles paradox, capability versus consent.
Society exiles them because they create moral dependency. They make ordinary people feel obsolete. It all comes back to that fear of asymmetry.
And this is where the deep dive takes a hard left turn and starts talking about artificial intelligence.
It's the perfect parallel. Yeah. It really is. Think about it. Why do people have this deep, gut-level fear of AI? It's not just Terminator scenarios of killer robots.
No, it's to get weirder.
It feels uncanny and unfair for the exact same reasons people would fear Superman if he were real. The source says it feels unearned and uncontrollable.
And it leads to the fear of the loss of authorship.
That's the phrase. If something this capable exists, I am no longer the author of my future. If a superintelligence or a Superman can solve every problem, write every song, cure every disease, what is left for me to do?
It voids human effort. It makes us pointless.
Exactly. And just like with Superman, you can't check a superintelligent system. You can't argue with it on equal footing. You can't win a debate against something that's a million times smarter than you.
Which creates structural mistrust. It almost doesn't matter if the AI is benevolent. It doesn't matter if Superman is the nicest guy in the universe. The gap in capability itself is the threat.
Because if the gap is that big, we are just pets. Maybe well-cared-for pets living in a utopia. But pets nonetheless. We've lost our agency.
So, in The Incredibles, the solution they came up with was exile. Hide the heroes, make them pretend to be normal. Is that the answer?
The source argues that exile is ethically flawed because it wastes potential.
Yeah.
If you have a cure for cancer sitting in a box, an AI, or a guy who can stop a meteor from hitting the Earth, Superman, and you ban them from helping, that is itself an immoral act.
But integration without structure is worse. We already established that. That's just quiet authoritarianism.
So what's the solution? The source calls it constrained integration. Not because it can, but because we agreed.
Because we agreed, that brings consent back into the picture. It's not just about what's possible, it's about what's permitted.
It is. And this leads us to the practical side. If superheroes actually showed up tomorrow, or more realistically, as AI continues to integrate into society, how do we handle it? The source says the backlash would be inevitable and, crucially, rational.
Rational. We'd be scared, but would it be a rational fear?
Yes, because of asymmetric risk. One supervillain can kill thousands in an instant. But one hero's mistake can be just as catastrophic. And we humans, us normal folks, we can't easily separate the good ones from the bad ones under stress.
It's category contamination.
Perfect term for it. If I see a guy flying through the air and leveling a building, I'm just going to be terrified. Regardless of the color of his uniform, I will default to survival mode.
So how do you build trust in that environment? It seems impossible.
It's incredibly difficult. The source suggests a framework with 4 pillars. First, licensing over identity.
What does that mean?
Powers do not equal permission. Just because you can fly doesn't mean you have the right to enter restricted airspace. Licenses are revocable. That puts the power back in the hands of the society. We grant you this authority, and we can take it away.
Okay, that makes sense. Accountability, what's second?
Second, division of labor.
So not just punching things.
Right. Heroes shouldn't just fight. If all they do is punch bad guys, they look like living weapons. They should evacuate people, stabilize collapsing structures, provide disaster relief. Visibility shapes morality. If you see Superman holding up a collapsing bridge so people can escape, that builds a different kind of trust than seeing him drop a villain through a roof.
Third, oversight with teeth.
There must be real consequences, even for good intent. If a hero's actions cause harm, they have to face the music.
Yeah.
Civilian review boards, no special immunity. They have to be part of the system, not above it.
And finally, the fourth one, voluntary restraint. The willingness to accept no as an answer.
This is the hardest one, the absolute hardest. The source calls it the prisoner's dilemma of courage.
Can you unpack that? That's a mouthful.
This is the idea that most people, when they're scared, choose self-preservation over the collective good. The internal calculation is, if I stick my neck out and I'm wrong, I get punished. If I stay quiet, I survive. Villains exploit this. They blur the lines of attribution. They make it dangerous to be a hero, which forces society to default to restriction.
So society says it's too risky. Lock them all up. Ban the technology.
Right. And this forces the heroes, or the AI developers, or whoever, into one of 3 paths. Path 1, withdrawal. Fine. If you don't want our help, we're done. That's the Atlas Shrugged approach. It's destabilizing.
Okay.
Path 2, paternalism. This is for your own good, whether you like it or not. That is the straight road to tyranny.
That's the injustice Superman.
Exactly. And then there's path 3, subordination.
Subordination.
This is the hero saying, I will accept limits that make me less effective than I could be.
Even if it means the bad guy gets away sometimes, because the rules stopped you.
Even if it means the bad guy gets away sometimes, because that is the only way to maintain legitimacy and trust with the society you're trying to protect.
That is a tough pill to swallow. The idea that a true hero has to willingly be less effective to remain a hero?
But think about the alternative. The alternative is a dictatorship of the benevolent. And history shows us again and again that benevolent dictators don't stay benevolent for very long. Subordination is the only sustainable path, even though it is by far the most painful and frustrating one.
It connects back to the very beginning, doesn't it? Voluntary obligation, but also voluntary limitation.
Exactly. The 2 sides of the same heroic coin.
So bringing it all together as we wrap up, what is the final synthesis here? What's the big takeaway?
The tragedy isn't that people don't trust heroes. The real tragedy is that trust itself becomes dangerous when the power gaps are too large. If we blindly trust, we lose our agency. If we blindly distrust, we lose their protection.
So it's a constant, difficult negotiation with no easy answers.
It is, and the sources argue that the real superhero story, the deep one, isn't about saving the world. It is about choosing again and again, every single day, not to own it.
That's powerful. It's not about owning the outcome, it's about the service.
Exactly. To serve, not to rule. That's the line.
Well, this has been a marvel of a conversation. I feel like I need to go rewatch every single superhero movie with a notepad now.
And maybe look at the news a little differently, too. The dynamics are all there.
Definitely. Before we sign off, I want to leave the listener with this one provocative thought from our source material. We've talked about strength, about restraint, about wisdom, but here is the final question. A true hero is not the strongest or the bravest, but the one who can outgrow their own narrative. If you had the power to fix everything, absolutely everything, would you have the wisdom to stop yourself?
That's the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you, Tim.